I had an antelope at 50 yards. I was shooting a 5-pin sight at this point. My 40 was a yellow and my 50 was a green. So when I drew back in the sunlight, that green turned to a yellow, so I didn't know which one was my 40 or 50. I actually had to release, look down, count my pins to double check. And by that time, the antelope had moved a little bit. And so I drew back. I split my pins, which is a great example of why a 5-pin is good in this situation. I split my pins, knew she was at about 55, 56, and let it through, and it went right through the boiler room. She ran 30 yards. So that's a great instance on when a 5-pin actually comes into play. And
absolutely.
It's actually a very good point to have a 5-pin. But on that, the other side of that is I didn't know which pin was the right one at first.
No.
And so it delayed me that couple seconds to where the antelope actually moved, and I missed a shot opportunity at the known range.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, and you know, I mean, I've had the same kind of instances. Now, my biggest problem with antelope, and I think most archery hunters with antelope, is the belly down.
Yeah.
And that's another instance where shooting the long range compared to shooting the short range can actually save your bacon. Because, like for me, I practice at 50 on a pretty usual basis. I will shoot 50 yards. You know, and I'm comfortable and I can shoot good solid groups at 50 yards. But never in a million years will I even shoot an antelope at 50 yards. Like I say, I'm the kind of hunter, I want to be on top of them when I shoot them. And so, you know, like say, the belly down at 20 yards, you're still probably going to get a lethal shot, especially with a fast shooting bow. And, you know, now years before, when I didn't have near the bow that I have now, I can't tell you how many, countless times I missed antelope due to the belly down. And that just goes to show.
They're notorious for it. Absolutely notorious for it.
Terrible. And then, you know, I got so used to them bellying down, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to aim a little low. You know, I'm going to make up for, I'm going to compensate here a little bit.
Then you started shooting under them, didn't you?
Well, the first one I shot under because I aimed low. And I was like, okay, this is screwed up. First they're jumping the string, and now they're not doing nothing. And so that, you know, that's kind of a problem a lot of archery hunters are going to run into, and new archery hunters are going to learn.
Yep. And
with most new archery hunters, you're going to have to learn the hard way, the same as all of us did.
Oh, beyond.
You know, I mean, you learn from your mistakes. That's just the honest truth of the matter. Like say, it's a pain sometimes, and it makes you just want to put your bow away. But the rush and everything that comes with it will keep a guy going.
Oh,
absolutely. But
there's nothing like
you know, like just like another stalking scenario though, where game plans can change considerably. Him and I were up on a mountain bow hunting some mule deer.
Oh yeah.
And we spotted this nice 4x4 buck, and he was up in this aspen grove. And so we had to literally climb a cliff face, all kinds of junk to get up on top in the right wind, get around on him. And he kind of sat back, you know, just kind of hung back. I dropped in on him. Well, I come into that aspen grove with them willows and aspen, and I still couldn't see him. Well, when I finally seen him, he was well within 10 yards of me. And all I caught was an antler glint. And had his head down feeding. Had no idea I was there. We were on a nice, fresh, wet snow in the afternoon, you know. And so, I mean, I just kind of slipped behind a tree, let him come forward into a good shooting zone that I had on him once I picked him out, and just sent one through him. But in that kind of scenario, with a 5-pin, that was fine, because my bottom pin is 20 yards. Well, your 20 to 10 ain't going to differ much. You're going to differ maybe an inch between the two. And so that's another scenario where the 5-pin actually helped. Because if the last animal you shot at was at 40 yards
and
with your single pin, and you forget to adjust that back down, well, you go in there, you're not thinking about adjusting your sight. You're thinking about sending an arrow through this animal that's almost within slapping distance of you. And so you don't even think about it. You just draw back and shoot, and all of a sudden you spine him, or you send an arrow way high, or make a foul shot due to the fact that you didn't adjust that sight.
Yep.
And so, I mean, as far as a mountain hunter, you know, and a plains. I mean, we hunt plains and we hunt mountain.
Oh, yeah.
You know, for me, it is by far more beneficial to use a 5-pin compared to a single pin. But when you have eyesight like his, where it's mashing things together, and especially like now we both shoot these super fast bows, they get mashed together. And I mean, but that's where your practice comes in play. Because you need to practice how you play. So you practice and you practice and you practice and run some laps and then shoot. Run some laps and shoot. Get the heart rate up. Get things going. So you're mimicking an actual scenario as close to as you can mimic it. You know?
Yep.
And that way, you know where those pins are. You got to practice and practice and practice. Because like mine, I sight my bow in 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. And then I got a 50. So I guess it's a 6-pin.
Yeah.
I shoot a 6-pin sight, not a 5. My bad. But, you know, I do the 5-yard increments. Because then if they're at 32, you know, he's dead. If he's at 42, he's probably dead.
Yeah.
You know.
See, and it's even with the single pin, it's training. Like, it's all because I'd actually specifically walked back and went through a cadence. And the cadence was check the sight, move the sight, lock the sight, set up. You know, and then you go through the draw cycle.
Yeah.
And I actually made it specific to make that part of my training. Just so in that high intensity situation, the muscle memory comes over.
Yes.
You
and
know?
that's one of the biggest keys to archery is muscle memory.
Yeah. And even just the littlest things. And I mean, what was it? This last antelope season, I ended up taking a really nice buck. Well, I'd been crawling towards him, and it happened so fast. This buck came charging in on me, and I get set up. I range him. He's at 40. I set my pin to 40. I get ready to draw back. Well, he sees that motion, and he gave it a quick hop and jump out to 45, and I reset. And I actually ranged again. Was able to move my pin down to 45, and ended up taking the shot and getting this antelope. And just because I'd been so used to that muscle memory and everything,
Absolutely.
I was actually able to do it almost as fast as I would have been with a 5-pin.
Yes.
It was just flick, twist, walk, draw.
Yes.
But if you're not used to that,
no,
that's when
and
you start shooting under or over, or you just completely airball the shot.
Absolutely. Or, you know, like the first mule deer I took with my bow. That kind of scenario is another good example of a 5-pin sight or a 6-pin like I use. You know, because...
Yeah, what was he at? Like 10?
Well, he was at 10 yards when I initially got up on him. And I knew he was there at 10 yards. And I knew as soon as I come around, he was going to jump out of his bed. But the typical mule deer thing, if they're not a real big old buck... And this was a nice buck.
Yep.
I mean, he was a mature deer.
He was a nice deer.
You know, and a knockout of a deer
for the area.
Definitely. And, you know, for a first deer with a bow. I mean, a knockout of a buck. But the deal with him is when I went to go get on him, I knew he was going to be right around the corner. Because I'd already seen him. He was bedded down in the shade. He wasn't going anywhere. And so I come up around the corner on him, drew back, and when I come around the corner, he jumped out to about 25. Well, I expected him to do that. But there's where you need to train your mind to range.